Okay, thank you so much. Next up, we have Lisa Ferguson, who is a Women Heart Champion class of 2017. She leads a support network in San Diego, California, and she's also a district community leader for the Western District, which includes the states of California, Nevada, Utah, Hawaii, and Alaska. Lisa will be discussing the patient experience managing heart disease, as well as the importance of virtual support networks. Thank you, Lisa.
Hello, and thank you so much for letting me speak today. I'm so pleased to be here with this amazing group. I wanted to share a little bit about my story, how I became part of WomenHeart, and then I was going to talk, as Morgan said, about the virtual environment and how that's been working for our support groups here in San Diego. So I have a distressingly familiar story of trusted doctors, playing down symptoms. 24 years ago, my OBGYN told me I had a murmur when I was pregnant, but with the caveat that, oh, it's very common and not to worry about it. And when you're having a baby, obviously, that's the advice you're going to go with, is not to worry about it. 5 years ago, so almost 20 years later, I had my first ER visit for chest pain and was told that I was just stressed out, and reluctantly ordered a stress test for me. And because it wasn't considered urgent, it took 3 months for me to get the appointment. And in the stress test, it was confirmed that I was actually in heart failure, and I needed open heart surgery to fix multiple problems with my mitral valve. I was a 50-year-old woman at that time with no heart issues, other than the doctor mentioning a murmur. But other than that, I hadn't had any other diagnosis for heart issues. My father had surgery for heart surgery, but we never really talked about what it was for, and he had already passed, so there was no asking more questions. And so I immediately was trying to find someone in my world, a woman or man, who had had open heart surgery, but I tried very hard and it just wasn't going to happen. So after surgery, I found a flyer for WomenHeart at cardio rehab. The meetings were in my neighborhood, so I was very excited to finally find someone to share my experience with. But that didn't happen either. I did learn, participating in a support group, how much I had in common with other women who maybe didn't share my diagnosis, but we certainly shared a lot of common feelings, worries, questions. And I was really interested in heart disease just in general, to hear what all the different women, what their experiences were, how they were being treated. And there's just so much commonality, despite the fact that we didn't have a common heart disease. So less than a year into my support group attendance, the leader asked if I would like to co-run meetings. And Mayo Clinic training was coming up, and I was beyond thrilled to jump in with both feet, as they say. I've since learned how important support networks are and support group meetings to people seeking them. The need to contact or connect with another human about your experience and hear and feel empathy and compassion are really at the top of the list for most people. There are also people like me who find comfort in education and learning the gory details and asking the hard questions. Like, for example, I wanted to know how they suture things into the heart muscle, because knowing that was comforting to me. And that isn't necessarily a common thing that people would ask. But I found that's, just the world of WomenHeart, and having some really great doctors and connections made it possible for me to get all my answers. I've also learned as being part of a support group that most people don't want that level of understanding. They really just really need the empathy and compassion and a private place to speak. That's been a really key component. And it's, for me, it's just been a joy to learn from other people and the support and getting support there. So during the pandemic, the support networks basically is at the core of what WomenHeart does for at least the people, the volunteers out in the field. So when the pandemic started, they were really wonderful at figuring out a way to support the support networks across the country. Most people saw the pros and cons of going virtual. Technology issues were always going to be at the top of the list for the cons, but the bottom line is that we had an option to continue, and that was fabulous. Here in San Diego, we were able to, just the level of comfort that the people running the groups here had with technology meant that we were able to start pretty quickly and offer a virtual option for meeting. And I think what we all know in running a support network is that the trickle effect of even helping just one person is invaluable. So it was worth it even if we had just 1 or 2 people attending. Our in-person support group here in San Diego was somewhat small. I mean, it would range quite a bit from 2 people to 8 or 10. But being virtual allowed us to toss out a larger net, if you will, and allowed people to attend without a commute. And it was also regardless of where you lived. Technology, the cons, I would say that technology is always going to be a factor. Many people weren't using their phones or PCs for anything other than phone calls and email. But most people made it over the learning curve, not everyone. In San Diego, we had 4 support groups actually within the county that quickly became 3 just due to logistics of managing the virtual meetings and who was running them. And I'll share an example of a problem we had with our Orange County group, which was consisted primarily of elderly folks who were rebelling against the virtual world and were trying to continue to meet in person. What ended up happening with that group is they tried very hard to have a virtual network, but the COVID issues just impacted the leader there, and she had to disband the group. And because it was mostly elderly ladies, and we had lost the connection with the hospital, so that they weren't really getting any new people, that no one was able to take over. So that group disbanded somewhat as a result of going virtual and COVID factors. But the pro on that is that they were invited to attend the San Diego meetings, which they're able to do easily over Zoom. So that was a great option. The need for support groups didn't stop during the craziness of COVID. And we actually added a group. It was with 2 young ladies who were already had networks within hospitals in their county. They were able to start up right away, and it was no problem for them to get the whole virtual thing going. No doubt we miss meeting in person, but rightfully so. Many folks are still nervous, and there's really not a big push to meet in person. That's not the case from other groups. I know I've heard from people across the nation, and those are in San Diego, at least. We're probably going to stick with the virtual option for the rest of the year. So part of the other benefit of having the virtual networks is my co-leader is a SCAD survivor, and she's part of a Facebook network that she was able to invite to attend our support groups. And a lot of those ladies are young moms, who are very motivated to learn and share about their experiences. I think that's exciting because it does open up, you know, WomenHeart, exposing WomenHeart and what we do and the value we can add to their journey. And I'm hoping that would lead eventually maybe even to new support groups. Those ladies live in a variety of states, they even British Columbia, and it's exposed all of us to learning how heart disease impacts ladies differently, even just based on where they are in life, because having an influx of young women who are new moms or just with small children, it adds quite a bit to the dynamic of our group that's very positive. The virtual network also allowed us to have share guest speakers. So recently we had an electrophysiologist scheduled to speak to our group that was coordinated through WomenHeart National. And we were able to combine our 3 San Diego groups to attend, which it gave us flexibility where we could offer our 2 support groups that were more personal support, but then dedicate one to a special event. That was fabulous and very well received. We don't really plan to, as I said, return to meetings this year. It just doesn't feel like the right time. But in January, we're hoping for a fresh new year, as I'm sure all of us are. My hospital is allowing volunteers back in another week. So part of my, another extension of my WomenHeart community support is visiting patients in the hospital. And that is how one of the ways of letting women know just on a one-on-one basis about WomenHeart and support groups are available. Overall, the virtual environment has really worked well, and it's different, but it has its pros. And I'm very honored to be able to share my experience. I want you to know how personally grateful I am for your participation in this conference. It's been a fabulous learning experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We appreciate all the work that you do for WomenHeart. And thank you for sharing your story and letting us know how virtual support networks are important in your area.